Welcome to the On the Rise podcast, where we talk about time freedom, passive investing through real estate, finance, mindset, and how to integrate your faith into your work. Let's dive in. Quick disclaimer as always, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. Welcome to the On the Rise podcast. This is the new Faith-Driven Leader series. I'm really excited about my guest today, my friend Max. We worked together for a season in a ministry called Campus Outreach and just been following his journey the last few years. So Max, welcome to the show.
Nick, it is wonderful to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna read your bio here, and then let you fill in the gaps. So Max is an account executive at Salesforce, where he works with executives to create world-class sales teams. He's also the co-founder of Catapult Careers, where he helps people land their dream job. Previously, he worked as a sales leader and in ministry before that. He's married, father of two, based in Atlanta.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's been a ton of fun. I will say, being newer to the team at Salesforce has been a lot of learning for me. But it's been really cool. I feel like in all the sales roles I've had, like Salesforce offers like a really unique seat at the table with executives. And so when I think about honestly, like having a career that is really impactful, being with like some of the most influential people within an organization, it's really fun. And I feel like it's useful. Now, yes, it is software, but when you think bigger about how it impacts everyone else's day-to-day life, it's really fun. So that's just what I'm working on right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, a couple of questions. So from ministry to sales to Salesforce, walk us through your journey there a little bit. And then second, I've heard some stories about Salesforce, how they're really generous. Maybe they give away 1% of their time, 1% of their profits. Maybe just tell us a little bit about that. I'm just curious about it.
Sure. When we'll go way back to when I was in college. As I was leaving, and graduating, I had met my now wife. We were not married yet, and I had a mission to join the Air Force. And due to health reasons, it did not work out, and I was disqualified. And it was very disappointing, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. But by God's grace, I had been involved in the ministry of campus outreach and ended up becoming a believer through the influence of a lot of people in that organization and got offered a job there. So it was not like, while I'm incredibly grateful for that experience, it was not my first choice. Because I really wanted to be in the military. And so I was wrestling with a huge identity crisis that I was probably not honest with myself about, to be quite honest with you. But in that time there, I kind of realized like, I don't know that this is the best fit for me. And it took me a while to figure that out. And I think some of that is like what I have coined like the young man's burden of like, you have entered your first job in the workforce and you feel so gung ho, you feel like you've got it all figured out and you really don't know how to do anything. And so it's just like frustrating, right? I digress. Ultimately, when I was working for CO, I realized that, and I was also running out of support. So I also raised support there. And so I would go to get coffee or lunch or whatever with people, and I would show up with one of two goals. And I would decide in the first 2 minutes where I want to take the conversation. Goal number one, get them on my support team. Goal number two, ask them for a job. And based on how the conversation started, I'd figure out where I wanted to take it. And I found myself leaning more towards, what do you do? Do you have space on your team? And I think that was a very clear sign to me that I think I want to leave ministry. And so I ended up getting a job as a business development rep for a trucking technology company. So that means that I cold called trucking companies all day, every day, which is a brutal way to start cold calling. But I had a fabulous manager and mentor that taught me a lot about cold calling. And I quite literally still use a lot of the same tips and tactics that he taught me oh gosh, 6 years ago now, even at Salesforce. It's amazing.
Give us like a little master class on cold callings. I think a lot of people would be ministered and helped by that.
Um, I did not come prepared for that. Let me think on it for a minute, and I'll come back around. But sure, we could do that. But I ended up like navigating several different job changes, which I think some people may not always be fans of. But I would work at a company for generally like a year and a half or 2 years, and I'd see another role. I'd interview for it. They offered, a significant increase in pay and responsibility or exposure to something I was interested in, and I just kept moving along. And so I went from being a BDR to then joined a really high growth tech startup in Birmingham, Alabama. Got to manage a team of 12 people. I think 11, if I remember correctly, 11 of those 12 people I helped get promoted, which was a joy. And then we moved to Philly to help with a church plant. I'm just giving you my whole resume here, Nick. We moved to help with a church plant, and I became the VP of sales at a marketing agency and got to lead like 13 of the 15 employees there. And then I left that because I realized while I loved leading people, I did not have enough sales experience truly to be as effective as one would want. And I took a very strategic step back to a fabulous company called Sprout Social, which was an account executive there. Learned a ton in 2 years. And then when we relocated from Philly to Atlanta to be closer to family, I got an offer at Salesforce, and it's kind of been off to the races. So it's like if I would have known I would end up here after I don't know a year and a half in ministry, I would be like, no way. But I think it's really cool how it has just naturally progressed to get here. So what will I be doing in 6 years? I have no idea, but that's how I got here.
And there's like a walking by faith of every transition you go through from one career to another. Those are some big transitions. You're talking about, the type of job, a location. How did you like make those decisions to make those changes? What was that process like? Even as you think about, weaving your faith into some of those decisions.
So there's a couple things. I try to really, when it comes to big decisions that cannot always be reversed, I try to figure out one, can they be reversed? So, for example, if I leave a company for another job, would they hire me back or not? Right? Like, how risky is this decision? uh, and like based on like as much input as I can possibly get, there's definitely some jokes about me at the office about, wow, Max asks a lot of questions. So like if I don't know how to do something, I'll go ask one person, and then even if I love their answer, I'll go ask two or three more people the exact same question to see if I get a different answer just to validate it. And so when it comes to making very big decisions in life, I might ask 2 to 3 dozen people, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? Whether I'm close to them or not, but just because I think they have some really good point of view. So I try to make collective decisions, even if it's just for my own life. And I think a lot of people are honored to get brought into big decisions that someone has made. But I think, I am smart enough to know I don't have all the answers. And so I need help. And so that's what I try to do. And then I try to think through like, a good friend of ours, Josh Etris, has helped me through many big decisions. I'll often approach him for that kind of thing, and help me think through a lot around like how Charlie Munger used to make decisions around like inverting it. Like if I don't do this, what else could happen? Or trying to just view things from different angles and whatnot. And so every decision that I have made that has gotten us here, um, I think was made with the best intentions at the time, not knowing where I would end up, 3 to 5 years later. But it was made with the intention of like 3 to 5 years from now, will I be happy that I made this decision? Will it have been de-risked? Will it have been wise? And so I don't know what I'm missing out on by making the decisions that I have made, but I'm grateful for where I'm at right now.
Well, I think there's a degree of like, as a faith driven leader, you have to walk by faith, and you have to make decisions when you don't know the outcome. And I think that's hard. Whether it's an opportunity, a new client, a new job change, a new location, you have to kind of weave all the different things in line. And I know Josh, and I just talked to him last week actually. He's a great friend. But I think as as Christians, the lens I've been taught is, what does the Word of God say? What does the people in my life, community say? And then as I pray, what's the Spirit saying? And if you're kind of standing on that three-legged, monster, so to speak, that can really help you navigate decisions. And I think you're onto something there about bringing in that inner circle of friends to help you navigate life's biggest opportunities and challenges and all of those things. So tell us a little bit more about Catapult. How did that start? Why did it start? And what's going on there?
I would love to tell you. Can I actually ask you a question about something that you just said?
Yeah.
You're talking about like creating an inner circle to help you make decisions. I have tossed around the idea before in my head of creating a personal board. Have you done that yourself or seen someone do it really well?
Um, yes, I, and it was unintentional. We moved from one location of the Twin Cities to another location, and the prayer was, Lord, give me some friends that, as much as I go 100% into the relationship, I pray that they would go 100% in the relationship too. I think sometimes we can think about friendships as, a dance or 50-50. And I think the best kinds of friends are the ones that are all in 100%. And that doesn't mean like all in available 24/7, but all in terms of like their demeanor. So just pray for that. And the Lord was like, here you go. And he introduced me to two dads in my neighborhood. We all go to different churches, but love the Lord and trying to lead our families. And those guys have been kind of my board of, of directors before every big decision that I make. I'm usually bouncing ideas off them and their spouses. Actually, I've gotten to know their spouses pretty well too. There's a few people that we're connected to that talk about doing this, and I think, if you can do it where you have a couple sages, a couple people a season or two ahead of you, couple people at your same level, and then some people that you're pouring into as well. But to think about your board as, equal peers and sages, I think would be really sweet. And I think we often don't have what we don't ask for. So ask the Lord for that. And I think he might give it to you, Max.
That's great. Yeah. And like what a joy it is to have like great friends that you can trust with like these kinds of decisions. I feel like there's like a legitimate like loneliness epidemic. Like it's not, you know, overblown, like it's real. And it's a gift that you have that and that they can almost even act as like not just friends and community, but like a board level of like intentionality. That's amazing. Um, Thanks for sharing. So you asked about Catapult Careers. Yes.
Yeah. I want to hear about like the origin story. How did it get started? What's going on with it today? And what are your hopes for it?
So I made a ton of mistakes when I was trying to move from that VP of sales role into whatever was next. It ended up taking me like 6 to 8 months to navigate that. Uh, Partly because like I was still employed throughout that time, and I wanted to show up and do a great job both by my team, but also like just in terms of like my responsibility for the business. So I only had like a few hours a week to devote, but I would set a goal to myself of like, hey, I'm going to apply to at minimum 5 jobs every single day, whether it's on LinkedIn or a company website. And I would just like, fire off the resume. And I kept a spreadsheet. I actually have this memorized. I applied to 228 jobs in those 8 months. Um, and I think I got like a 1% like first round interview like hit rate. It was arduous. And so when people say like, yeah, the job market's really tough right now, like I was like, I have experienced that. And I ended up having someone uh, like we had a phone conversation. He was at some natural history museum with his kids and they were like looking at dinosaurs. I don't know why I remember this. We talked for 30 minutes. He was halfway paying attention and he was telling me like, if I'm honest with you, Max, you are going about this all wrong. You need to try and actually narrow your scope, find maybe a dozen companies at most, try to break in there, build relationships, and be like pretend like you're a BDR, like you're trying to break in and close a deal. That's how you should go about this. It'll feel slower at first, but you have to slow down to speed up. And I made a list of maybe 20 companies, call me ambitious. I think I got interviews with like 12 of those companies. We're talking, I got interviews at Google and Deloitte. I don't think I got an interview at Salesforce, but they were on the list at the time. And there were several other like public companies. And I was like, I don't have the pedigree to deserve conversations there. But because I was networking and trying to break my way in, I was getting a seat at the table that I didn't think I really, and I definitely wouldn't have gotten a seat at the table if I'd applied cold. And so basically ended up getting a role at Sprout Social, and it was fabulous. I got to learn so much there. And I was like, okay, I would love to be able to package and teach people everything that I've learned so they don't make the same painful mistakes that I've made. And I was like, I need to figure out my role here first. I probably waited 6 to 12 months and ended up just running the idea by a really good friend of mine from college named Graham Pierce. And he was like, oh, um, I've been helping people navigate the job market just like as friends or friends of friends. And at the time I'd been kind of like, fiddling around with it and helping folks here and there. And he was like, do you want to start a business together? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I think we had like thrown around the idea on and off for a couple of years, like it would be so fun to work together, but we don't know what we want to do. And then this just kind of happened organically. And so we, started the business, and now almost 2 years later, this is been squarely a passion project. We both work full time. He works in commercial insurance. I work in software sales. But in that time, we've helped 37 people that have like officially been clients land roles. Of those 37 people, 35 or 36 all got jobs, all under 90 days by kind of basically implementing the process that we recommend. And every single time, and at the beginning, they're like, Max, this is really hard. I don't know if this is working. I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, wow, they paid me money, and it worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for them. And I was like, just keep going. Just trust me, keep going. And it's like, I can always refund them their money, if I need to. But it would work. And it kept working and working. And I was like, okay, we really do have something here. Like this is like tested, this is proven. And so now whenever someone's like, I don't know if this is working, it's like, just keep going, trust me. And I have so many just amazing stories. And I think it's really fun when you think about all the ways that income can impact someone's life. It is just heartwarming to work through this with the people that we've gotten to. So it's been really fun to do Catapult, and we still do it on the side. I just had a conversation right before this with someone who's just been laid off earlier in the month, and so we're talking through like how to help them figure out what's next.
Hey everyone, just a quick word before we jump back into this episode. I'm Zach, the CEO of Rise 48 Equity, and I want to take a moment to share a little bit about what we do and why we do it, because I think it's going to resonate with a lot of you who are listening to this series. At Rise 48, we're a real estate investment company, but the way that we think about our work goes beyond just improving properties and generating returns. We genuinely believe that when you invest in a community, you have a responsibility to invest in the people who live there too. That looks like hiring community managers who are present and engaged with residents. It looks like hosting monthly events for our residents to build an actual community. It looks like our team showing up together to volunteer and partner with nonprofits in the areas where we operate. For those of us who are faith-driven, I think there's also a deeper question underneath every investment decision, and it's not just what's the return, it's what is my capital actually building? Those two things should and can coexist together. At Rise 48, we built a model where strong returns and strong communities go hand in hand. If that's the kind of investment that you've been looking for, we'd love to connect with you and tell you about what we're building. You can learn more at rise48equity.com, and we'll get you right back to the episode.
Exciting. Cool. Sounds like a cool ministry business opportunity to use your skill set. I guess what prevents you from just going all in on that? I know you really enjoy your role at Salesforce right now. How do you discern kind of a main gig and a side hustle? How do you work through that?
I mean, plainly put, when I think about my career, I try to think in terms of decades. And when I think at what I want to be doing 30, 40 years from now, it is, still going to be working with customers at an enterprise scale. Like that is the most, like, I think that is how you can impact the most lives. And so that's what I want to do long term. But I feel like I have enjoyed this and love doing it, and I feel like I'm helping people in a different way. Um, and so there's like that aspect of it. There's also the reality of, yeah, one pays better than the other, and so I also have a very practical responsibility to provide for my family, and so that will always supersede uh, any decisions around like what I do next.
Yeah. You talked about a coworker from a previous work situation that really changed your perspective on sales. Can you just share that story?
Yeah, this is one of my. This was when you think of like real inflection points in your life, like a watershed moment. Like this is absolutely one of them. So to set the stage, I had been an account executive at Sprout Social for almost a year exactly. And at the end of Q2, rounding out like the end of my first year, I finished as the dead last account executive in mid market. So out of like 40 people, I was last place in terms of like performance. And it was um, it was like over the July 4th weekend because Q2 ends in like June 30th. We were sitting at a friend's beach house, and I knew I wasn't doing well, but I was like, hey, I'm not going to finish last. And I very like manically kept um, refreshing the Tableau dashboard to see how everyone was doing. And I did this till midnight, and I just saw more deals come in for everyone else but me. And it was crushing. It was a really painful moment. And so I ended up having a conversation with a friend of mine who was in the next segment up. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I've never been at this low of a point in my life. And, Sprout is a very nurturing and forgiving organization. But despite that, it's like any sales organization, if you're not performing well, like your job is on the line. Like that's a very reasonable and practical thing. And so I'm stressed about that. I'm also disappointed in myself. I'm questioning my identity as a seller. I'm very squarely spiraling, right? And the guy who was mentoring me is a believer, very godly dude, and a fabulous seller. Customers just love him. Um, and so, Sprout Social, if anyone is not familiar, is a social media management software. So, marketing teams use it, et cetera. And, I think the public conversation around social media, like sometimes social media is questionable, right? And it's like, this is not a super like revenue driving product either. Teams that use it love it, but it's like, okay, so is it making a business impact? Is it helping the broader narrative around social? Like, what is this even all for, right? Um, and Nick, do you mind if I cuss in a quote? Okay. So basically, I was like, in a conversation with him, I was like, do you give a damn about what we're doing here? Like, do you really care? And he was like, yeah, I do. Like the people that we talk to every day, like if I can help them make their day-to-day lives better, if I can help them get a promotion, if I can help them make a deeper impact on their customers, like, yeah, I do give a damn about that. And I was like, that's helpful. Yeah, that's a total reframe. And then he does not stop there. He's like, dude, can we just like pray together real quick? I'd never prayed with a coworker in this kind of setting before. And he prayed for like customers by name and talked through like their deals with the Lord in his prayer. And I was like, I mean, I used to do that when I raised support. Like I'd pray going into a support raising meeting. I'd pray for their family. I never thought to do that in a secular workspace. And so to see how he's like trusting God with every single sale, every single customer interaction, it's like, it's a perfect reminder of like what we truly believe, that like we are not the provider. We are not in control. God is the provider. And we think about even like our faith and our identity in God, like God didn't choose us because we were the most humble. He didn't choose us because we were the strongest, or he didn't choose us because we were the weakest. He chose us because he chose us, and it was his decision. There is nothing that we could have done. And so when I think about every single sale, every single like, customer interaction, every cold call, to go back to that, God provides it. And so how do I trust him with those interactions and pray regularly for my customers? It was a total shift to me. and how I go about my business. And then he does not stop there. So I had been like, as a believer, I'd kind of come up in like this very reformed PCA background. And so a lot of like, movement of the Holy Spirit, you know, we didn't really touch that area as much. And so by nature of that, a lot of the gospel music I listened to was always very like scripture based and like, hymn-esque, if you will. And so I had never even heard of a group called Maverick City Music. I don't know if you're familiar.
Baby, come
But he sent, you like him? Yeah. So he sent me a video of them they were doing like a concert at a prison in Florida. Uh, and I think the song's called, what is it? It's My Life is in Your Hands. And it's like they were there, and these prisoners were like singing along with absolute joy around like trusting God in every aspect of their life. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here wallowing in my self pity, and I have a fabulous job, and I live in my house with my wife and child, and I've got a dog, and I've got like, I'm not really needing anything. And here I am feeling sorry for myself because I had a 1 quarter of poor performance. And these guys are in prison. Some of them probably for life, theoretically, no hope. And they have joy, trusting the Lord in every aspect of their life. And as I'm watching this, he had sent me this after our conversation. As I'm watching this, I'm just like at my desk weeping, like, what am I doing? There's so much more to this. And I think that has absolutely changed the way that I approach my work today.
Oh, that was beautiful. It makes me just want to pull up my sales dashboard and my Kanban board and go through all of my leads and just start bringing them before the Lord. And it sounds simple, like, hey, you don't have because you don't ask, and we don't ask because we don't have the faith. And yet, it's just testimony that I think even as a faith-driven leader, it's easy to show up on Sunday, or if you do family devotions at home, or maybe a Wednesday night, and turn on the I will trust the Lord. Before a meal, if you're a faith-driven leader, maybe you pray. That's your customary way of doing things. Before I put my kids to bed, I usually pray for them. But it's harder to, I think, come into the office. We were talking about the difference between working at home versus working in an office with people. Pull up your dashboard and say, okay, Lord, this day is yours. Here are my meetings. Here's my agenda, but how do you want to direct it? And I think there's a lot of fear that goes into even asking that question, because we love control as Americans. We love to be in control. We love to set our trajectory. And I think sometimes the living by faith it kind of produces trials and is fearful. So since that moment, how has your work changed in terms of walking by faith or incorporating God into your work?
I think it allows me to like do a couple of things. One, like, I'm not perfect, and I'm not always remembering to do this. Like, I had a very long conversation with a friend yesterday morning on my way to the office, and I was kind of explaining to him some frustrations around work, and quite honestly, a big deal that was very competitive that I just lost. And I was like, again, like kind of heartbroken about it. I put a lot of effort into it, and he was just gracious to remind me of like the truths of my identity as a believer and like where I have shined as a salesperson and the impact I've had on him. And so I say that to say, like, I have not perfected it. But it was a great reminder and something that was very much needed. So the way that it shapes my work now practically is like how I care for my customers and how I remind myself of like how my deals are going. So one, in terms of how I engage with my customers, like, they know, whether they will say it out loud or not, that I really care about them and that I have their best interest at heart. That while, yes, I am trying to sell them things, I am honest about that. Um, I try to make sure that they know at the very least, like, even if I don't sell you anything, even if you buy nothing from me, I care about you and I want to see the best for you and your business. And so I want to ask you questions that are going to, that are going to display that. And I think that comes across, and at the very least, they really appreciate that. So, for example, this particular deal that I lost, they afterwards they were like, "Hey, we're really grateful for the time we spent together on this with you." And they're current customers, so they're like, "And we're excited to keep on working with you. We don't want to get assigned to anybody else. We really enjoy working with you." And it's like, you can look at that from all sorts of different ways, but at the very least, like, I know that like they felt appreciated, right? So, and then when it comes to my deals, like, if we're really honest, like, I still have so much to learn. Like, I have put a high premium in my career when I left and joined Sprout, and then when I came to Salesforce, I've made decisions around where can I go to learn as much as possible, so that 20 years from now, I'm a better leader or better seller than I am today, rather than, oh, I can just go make more money over here. And so because of that, at Salesforce, we sell and support our customers via so many products that it's a lot to learn. Any one segment of what we might provide, like, there's could be a dozen competitors in that one. Like, whole companies exist that do that one thing really well, and then we have that also. And so I've got to learn what another account executive at another company sells all day long on the fly. And so it's a lot to know, and it allows me to be like, I am not in control. I don't know everything, but I understand you have this problem. I'm going to bring in help who's going to be an expert, and then I can let them own that conversation. I don't have to own everything. And I don't have to, pretend to be something that I'm not. I can just be honest with my customer, and we can just, it takes a lot of the pressure off, where it's like, yeah, we're just having a very real conversation versus trying to close a deal. And I think that goes a long way. So those are kind of how that shows up now.
That's sweet. You were talking before we started here just about a lesson you've learned in investing, and I'm not sure if this would be a good time for you to share it, but if it is, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite stories. Um, when my wife and I were dating, I knew, maybe before anyone else, I don't know, that I wanted to marry my wife. I remember on our very first date, we're sitting down having coffee, and this is the cheesiest thing you've ever heard in your life. We sat down and had coffee for 3 hours the first time we like hung out. And Nick, when I left, my face hurt because I was smiling the whole time. um, and so, anyway, we get to the point where we're like, okay, we're serious, we're dating. And I go ask her parents, like, hey, can I marry your daughter? Um, and my now father-in-law looks at me and he says, on one condition. I was like, I'm 20, 21 at the time. And I'm like shaking in my boots, like, yes, sir, whatever you want. And he's like, on one condition, that you have to take the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace course. I'll buy it for you, but you have to take it. And I was like, okay, done. No problem. Done. And so we watched it together, and, say what you want about Dave. But I think his principles are good. And I think whether his, 7 baby steps are the most optimal, I don't know. I'm not a finance guy, but I do know having a plan and sticking to a plan is a really good way to go through anything that you don't feel like confident in, because it gives you some sort of structure and filter to view things through. And so when we got married, we had, Nick, no money. We had no money, and we didn't even have jobs yet. Like, I hadn't finished raising support. My wife didn't have a job yet. There was like 2 months where we had no money. So I think when we moved to Birmingham, we had maybe $1,000 to our name at best. It's like, cool. Baby step number 1, check. We didn't have any debt, check. All right, we got to go work on an emergency fund. And I'm working in ministry. She works at a nonprofit. These are also entry-level roles. We didn't have a lot of money coming in. So every Saturday I sat down and like would itemize every single expense maniacally. And it was a bit obsessive. But because he sat me down and like just gave me a framework to think through and a requirement, we have been able to save well and invest well. So we were able to save an emergency fund. We were able to buy a house. We broke a rule and we did a 30-year mortgage. But we save for retirement well, and I think now we're in a position where it's like, okay, we don't feel as stressed about what the future is going to hold. Like we've been able to like be really frugal and prioritize that well, and it helps us be in a like much more confident position moving forward. But yeah, I love that story of him being like, you know, making this big condition seem crazy and then it being very easy to accomplish.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Say what you want about the Ramsey method or Financial Peace University, but there's a lot of foundational principles that can really help a lot of people. So that's awesome. Let's change gears here. Let's talk about legacy. When you think about legacy, what do you want the people closest to you to say about who you were, not just what you accomplished?
I don't know that I have an answer for that. In fact, I was talking with a friend about that this morning, and it was again quoting Josh Dietrich that at best you're gonna get remembered like when you think of your great great grandfather, it's like, oh yeah, he was a salesman or he was a farmer or whatever, and that's as good as you're gonna get probably. How can you expand beyond that, you know? And I don't think that my great great grandkids will know about much of my life, but I can make an impact on my children and maybe my children's children and the people around me. But I don't know that I have exactly the goal figured out, but I have thought through a framework that'll hopefully help us get there. And that is um, through when my wife and I sat down. This was when maybe our maybe we were pregnant with our son. Maybe he was a few months old at the time, and we sat down and we like wrote out a family values statement. It now hangs in our dining room, uh, and so we actually used Brene Brown's Dare to Lead, and she suggests creating personal values in this book. And so I, like photocopied the page where she's got literally the entire page is full of potential values that you can write down. And for her suggestion was you can pick two. And I was like, we're going to do more than two. And so we like sat down one day over coffee and spent like 20 minutes just circling the words that meant the most to us.
Hmm.
And then we workshopped over months because like how I presented it to my wife was like, "Hey, babe, these are gonna last forever. Let's be thoughtful." And she was like, "Can we just decide already? Like, I've given you what I want, you know." But I think I really drew it out, and I think maybe spent 2 months on this, slowly revisiting it. And she had four words, I had four words, and we found a way to marry them together. So basically, the values are. For the glory of God, we intentionally initiate, endure together, honor others, and steward generously. So when we think about like there's meaning behind every word that we put, right? Um, she said, I want to be intentional. And I said, I want us to be initiators. So that's where we got that. I was focusing heavily on endurance and she was focusing on togetherness. And it's like, we're going to get through hard things together as a family. We both agreed that honoring others was more important than like making people happy, but how do we honor who they are? And sometimes that means we have to give bad news, but we give it well. And then we had thought about stewardship and generosity. Uh, and so it's like those come together perfectly. So how do we steward all that God has given us in a way that is generous and we're giving as much away as we possibly can? And maybe we'll add more down the road, but that's how we think about it now. And I probably should do more critical thinking around the legacy that we want to leave. But for now, I think that is a really good framework to help us get wherever we're going.
Love that, man. There's so many nuggets you shared, and we didn't get to do the master class on cold calling or even a master class on creating family values, but maybe we'll have to have you back to do that. Really, really good. I guess if someone was listening to this today and was going through a season, what would you want them to hear? What would be a final nugget of wisdom to share?
When I give advice to things like this, I think of my 22-year-old self who had no idea what he wanted to do when he grows up. I'm like roughly 10 years past that. I still don't know what I want to do, but I was incredibly insecure at the time. And so I filter a lot of advice that I give through that. And ultimately, it's like, uh, you have a great responsibility, and at the same time, none of it rests on your shoulders. You are not the provider. God is our provider. He gives us every single thing that we have, every second that we have. He provides for us. And so our job is just to be faithful and to work heartily unto the Lord. And whatever comes next, whatever next phase it is, whatever is stressful at the moment, like our identity does not rest in whether we succeed or fail. It rests in Him. He will provide for us our every need. All we have to do is be faithful to the task at hand.
Really good. Well, thanks so much for joining us. If people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to go?
You can find me on LinkedIn. If you just search Max Herman Salesforce, I'll be there.
So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Nick. This was a pleasure.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the On the Rise podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decisions, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the On the Rise podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.